Okay guys, so in this episode, we're going to talk about how much money you need to spend as an adult beginner violinist. Let's do it. Okay guys, before we kick off, and I never do this, but I'm going to start pushing it because the amount of people who are not subscribed to my channel and who watch my content is crazy. So it's like 90%. So let's hit that subscribe button, hit the bell button, because there are going to be so many of these type of videos coming out. And if you are an adult beginner violinist, this content is for you. So let's get into it. Okay, so most people, I'm holding a shoulder rest. So most people are searching online for this particular question because most people want to spend as little money as possible when they are exploring the concept of fiddling or violining. So the most important thing is budget. So let's start here. Okay, so budget. If you have enough money to buy a decent violin, go for it. Go down to a Luthier, find a reasonably priced beginner violin and take it, because nothing compares to a handmade violin. Nothing. There are no amount of $1,000, $2,000 mass-produced violin that you'll find on Amazon is going to compare to a handcrafted violin. You know, even if it's old and it's been repaired and refurbished, it's going to be far superior than anything that you can buy from Amazon or online. Having said that, a lot of these, a luthier, so a violin maker, for people who don't know, a luthier is a violin maker. So violin makers are not easily accessible to everyone around the world. And, you know, we're online now, so we have to take into consideration everyone around the world. And I was, and still am, one of those people who cannot easily access a violin maker. So the best advice I can give you, if you have no restrictions, is to, first of all, find a violin teacher. Again, we're going to separate ourselves down now into those who are learning violin via a teacher and those who are learning via online. So let's just talk about people who have a teacher, because this becomes really easy for you, okay? But it becomes a little bit more of you need more information as someone online. So if you have a teacher, you just need to go to your teacher and discuss right there what they believe is best for you. Nobody is going to give you better information and advice than a violin teacher. So anything that I say in this video is going to be superseded by what your teacher tells you, okay? So if you have a teacher, just sit back and chill now. You know, there's still some stuff about what else you can buy to complement your violin, and we'll get to that. But let's talk to people who are learning online. So those who can't afford or have no access to a violin teacher, or you're a fiddler in a different country and you don't have access to a fiddle teacher, I'm talking to you now. So as an online student who has no experience in buying a violin, who doesn't really know what they're doing, and you have two options, right? You can rent or you can buy. If you're going to rent, one of the most important things you have to make sure is that you are not renting a mass-produced crap violin, basically, because a lot of schools and places like that do not stock handmade violins. Now you can go to a violin maker and rent what is most definitely going to be a very good, you know, like a refurbished handmade violin. But in certain things like large music institutions and high schools that are renting, there is a good chance that you'll be paying like $70 every 3 months or so, whatever your rental agreement is, there's a good chance that by the time you get to like your first or second year, you've actually paid more in rent than the violin is worth. So be careful that you're not going to do that. There's nothing worse than after about 4 months of renting that you realize that you have a stentor. You have a stentor violin and you've paid almost half its worth in rent in your first year. You'll feel really shit. So if you're going to rent, check the brand of your violin and grab out your iPhone, Google it and see if it's available on Amazon. And if they're basically getting you to rent like a mass-produced violin that you can buy online, just walk away. Okay, because this next part will become, find another place where you can actually rent a violin. But if you do find yourself staring at a stentor and they're asking you to sign a rental agreement, take a step back and have a think. Because a lot of almost all mass-produced violins are available online via Amazon, if you're in Europe, Thomann.de, Thomann.uk, it's all available online. And then Australia, I don't know, haven't been there for a while. Let's go back to the original question. Like, people are coming here because they're trying to spend the least amount of money. Now, the best advice I can give you, so it's not necessarily the most realistic advice, but the best advice I can give you is to check online, check AWSOME, the online violin and piano teacher, and check her reviews, check everybody's reviews online, do your homework before you go out and buy a violin. And if it falls within your budget, maybe get the violin that these teachers are recommending. So let's talk about reality. The reality is that a lot of adults don't have, extra income just to go out and spend $300 on a new hobby. So they can't just go out and go, I'm gonna get a violin, but I don't know if I'll like it. I might play it once and then it's done. And so many people are edging the price down and down and down until they're looking at like a $200, even a $100 violin. Now, is that okay? So should you? No, not really, you shouldn't. But having said that, I'm also a guitar player and I spent years just playing a $120 guitar and running around all over the world with this $120 guitar and still being able to busk and do everything with this $120 guitar. Now, is it same with the violin? Oh, man, okay. So the biggest problem with buying a $100 violin online, let's just say Amazon, is that the quality of strings when they arrive are absolute garbage. They're literally worth $2. And then they're thrown on this violin and it's garbage. And basically, your ability to learn, so to go from like 0 hour to like month 3 on those strings is so bad because they're such low quality. So I'm going to show you my violin. I'm going to show you my $120 violin so you guys can check it out. Here we go. So rather than trying to explain it to you, I'm going to show it to you. So I was exactly like you. And I didn't know if I wanted to do this. I didn't really understand what kind of violin I wanted to learn. And interesting enough is that I didn't learn violin at all. I learned the fiddle. I learned to play the fiddle rather than violin in the end. And so what I did is I jumped on, so I'm in Europe here. So I jumped on Thomann, which is a great website for people in Europe, possibly around the world. But for me, I get all my stuff from Germany. So I bought this for around $120, okay? And it is what's called a Stag VN, and it's full size. So a Stag VN and it's in full size. I'll leave the description of it in the comments and you guys can check it out on Amazon if you're American and stuff like that. But it's not expensive. It came with the case, with a hard case, and then inside is this basically, low quality, mass-produced violin. And so what I did, immediately. And I learned this from playing guitar, is that I changed the strings. And you'll see this in past videos. I talk about it a lot. I changed the strings almost immediately. I snapped a string. As soon as I tuned it, I snapped the string, and I was like, you know, of course, like, this is a $100 violin. The strings are going to be such low quality. What am I doing? Let's change them. So I spent $40 on a set of D'Addario Helicore strings for violin, and I never looked back. And I changed them. Every couple of months I changed my strings, and that is a good habit to get into. So after spending $100 on this violin and realizing that it's something I wanted to do, I had hoped to upgrade to a better violin. So the theory behind this is that you spend $100, you spend $160 on making this usable, and then you can use this. It's good enough for at least your first year at violin. Now, I'm up to third year now, and I still use this violin. You can check out all my videos, especially my recent videos. You can hear me playing, and it's fine. Now, my bow is becoming like pretty worn. It's starting to warp a little and get pretty, it basically the hairs need replacing, and you'd never replace the hairs on such a cheap bow. You would just get yourself a carbon fiber bow. So in your first year or two, but again, I'm up to third year and I haven't spent $1. Well, that's not true. I have extra money. I decided I wanted to try a different chin rest, and I also bought, please don't untune, thank you. I bought a second chin rest, shoulder rest. So I replaced my chin rest, and I got a better shoulder rest, because you'll go through like 10 of these before you find the one that you like. But we'll talk about that in a minute. And so now I've been using my violin, my $120 violin, for 3 years with almost no feeling of changing, of needing to get a new one, because I'm a father, you know, and a family man. So everybody else comes first. So I don't get to now go out and spend more money on a violin or anything like that. I have to play this because that's reality. My $120 violin is what I am able to use. And I feel that, like, my story is not original. I think that even you might be in the same boat, where you have a certain amount of spare cash to spend and hopefully be able to grow your hobby and your passion as a violinist, so that when your kids do grow up and you do have a little bit more time, that you are ready to, you know, actually play at an intermediate level rather than starting to learn then. I understand. So I'm just gonna put this down. Okay, so I just wanted to mention this really quick before, because I'll feel really bad if I don't mention it. So if you are a beginner, this is so important. If you are a beginner and you do find that the strings that your violin that you bought online are inferior and you decide to change them, do not take all your strings off at once. Change them one by one, because it is the strings that it's the pressure of the strings that keeps your bridge attached to your violin. And if you take them off, the sound post inside the violin can fall over, one, or move. And secondly is that your bridge will just fall. And as a beginner, you're not going to be able to know how to put that back on correct. Luckily, I've never done that, but there are hundreds of people out there who have made this mistake. Don't take all your strings off when you're changing your strings. Before I jump onto like little accessories and stuff, strings. There's so many different strings out there. The strings that I use, and you can hear me play them in my videos, they're D'Addario Helicore for violin, okay? I have placed a link in the description right next to my violin, so you can check it out. A couple of things that you will need for your violin is a shoulder rest. So I have two here. So this is the one that I believe came with my violin. So this was in my violin case, and it's absolute garbage. So I upgraded to a Wolf Secondo Forte. Yep. Again, I'll put the link in the description so you can go and have a read about it on Amazon or wherever you are. It has the sizes there, so make sure that you, when you do buy it online, that it is for an adult violin. This is great because I'm able to bend it, and it's just better quality. It has nice rubber forks on it, so it stays on the violin better. Yeah, you will go through many of them, but you're going to need one of these. If you can't afford to buy one with your violin because you are on a really, really tight budget, go and buy a $2 car sponge. Again, check the links below. You will see me talk about this in a video, and I'll chuck it down the bottom there. It's basically about, you can use a $2 car sponge from the $2 shop as a shoulder rest, and it actually allows you to mold it into your shoulder, and everything moves and settles much better than a shoulder rest does for beginners. While you work out your left hand hold and your bowing and being able to, you know, get your chin onto your violin and without too much pressure, etc., etc. So sponges are great. Recommend. Again, check my videos. I used one for a long time because I just couldn't figure out shoulder rest. Okay, so other things that are going to be really helpful when you first sort of open up your violin. So the first thing you're going to have to do is tune your violin, and it can be really impossible to do on your own. So there's two ways you can do it. You can, and only one of these costs money, so everything else is free. There are plenty of apps for iPhone and Android that tune violins, so guitars. I believe there's even violin tuners available as apps. You can even have one that is done by ear, so you can just click the app and it will play the G, D, A, and E, so as a sound, and then you tune it by ear, which is really good to learn to do, because when you first come in and you switch on your tuner and you're tuning, there could be no reference to where you are in the tuning, you know, where you are in pitch. You could be too low and you're trying to tune to a lower octave by accident. These are all mistakes people make, and then you start playing and like, man, that sounds terrible. It's because your violin is tuned too low, especially if you use a guitar tuner. A guitar tuner can send you on a wild goose chase up and down the scale trying to get the correct pitch. What else do we have? So a guitar tuner, I'll go get one. Okay, I'm back. So guitar tuners, so this is a guitar tuner, and you can see that it's designed in a way to clip onto the head of a guitar. It doesn't work so good on a violin. I don't recommend them, but they're cheap. Here's another type. Family. I love my Danish family. They just get me everything. It's so good. I also found a reference for you guys. This is what I mean by a car sponge. It just rests on your shoulder like that, and the violin goes on like that. Again, it's all referenced in my video with the link in the description. Yeah, so basically guys, that's what you need. So let's just go through it really quick. I'll just place it up on here. So you're going to need to budget, for your budget, for starting out, you are going to need a violin, which should hopefully come, whether renting or not, should come with a case, a bow, and the violin itself. Don't be afraid to buy a cheap one if you are worried. Like I said, mine is a Stag VN. It cost $120, and all I did was change the strings, and it sounds really good. Again, the quality of sound is nothing compared to the really, really good violins, but it's good enough. Okay, so you're gonna need a shoulder rest. Again, I recommend spending $40 on one of these. And again, if you're on a budget and you can't afford one, get a sponge, okay? It is just as good, and you may find that you'll never own one of these. And if you never own one of these, you're doing yourself a massive favor as a fiddler or a violinist, because these things you waste so much time just trying to figure out if this is the problem, if this is the problem. The thing is, with a sponge, you know that you're the problem and you need to improve. But it's so many times we sit here and go, oh, my violin wobbles, and oh, you know, this, I think there's something wrong with my shoulder rest, or my chin rest is wrong. It's not, man. It's just because you're a beginner and you're learning. So you'll save so much time and money with a sponge, but yeah, we all use these eventually. Yep. So you will need a way to tune your violin. So you can jump onto your iPhone or Android phone and download an app, and you make sure you tune your violin every time you practice. If you don't, you can always just get a tuner. So if you don't want to use your phone, you can use a tuner. Just make sure that the air conditioning is off while you're tuning, because it's a pain in the butt to try and tune underneath the air conditioner, because it sends the needle like this. Anyway. All right, guys, so that's it. I try to keep it as informal as possible. Okay, guys, there was one thing that I forgot to mention, is that so rosin comes in your case as well. If you buy a mass-produced violin, this will come. So it doesn't work. Your bow doesn't work without this. So, and I will make a video and telling you how to do this and all that. It's really good to know. But there is one more thing I wanted to talk about. Look at this. This looks so snazzy. So this is a mute, and it's basically going to stop your neighbors from hating you. It basically dulls the sound of the violin. And I'll make a video about this so you guys can see what this actually does. So again, check the link in the description for a video about mutes, because I think it's really good to know about these things. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys. I'm only human. I'm sure I've missed something. I think I probably have missed something. So get down into the comments and ask questions, and I will answer the best I can. And if I can't answer that question, I will send you to places where people will answer these questions for you, because there are so many people out there with such higher levels of knowledge on violin than me. I'm just like you, I'm a beginner, but sometimes the information that people who are really, really experienced can give can sometimes be just too much. So now I've shown you that you can have a cheap violin as your first instrument. My biggest takeaway that I really want to point out to everyone, and I want to say this right as a disclaimer, your cheap violin should not be your only violin. Like this violin, and I know I have because that's my predicament, okay? I cannot afford a more expensive violin right now in my life. But if you can, and you've been playing for some time and you love the violin, upgrade. Like, do not think that you have to spend your whole violin journey on a shit violin. You don't. Once you've done a little bit more playing, and you've been around and you've listened to your teacher talk and other students, you will start to understand what it is that you're looking for in a violin. Go out and get it, okay? Don't be under the impression that you have to stick with a shit violin. You don't. This is just to see if you like it. And sometimes, the reason why I mentioned getting good strings is because sometimes those horrible strings can be the difference between you continuing and just giving up. So that's why I always try to mention that changing strings is important. Okay, we're going to leave it there, guys. Have a good day. I'll see you in the next video.